This is the Perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah!
So what exactly is the Perfect RIA?
Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I'm your co-host, Micah, and with me, as usual, the legendary Matthew Jarvis. What's going on, bud?
Oh, Micah, I'm just loving life. Here we are. We're midway or almost through January, and so it's exciting to see this year develop. It's exciting to see what we've been able to do in our practices, what advisors are doing in their practices, and really always just excited to talk shop with you, Micah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I thoroughly enjoy about getting together to do these podcasts is talking shop, going through what's working, what's not working. We're going to talk about some pretty cool things that are happening this year. We're going to talk about a lot about the Perfect RIA because we're getting a lot of questions from people about what type of mission we have, what are our goals, what type of impact do we want to have, etc. So we want to take a little bit of pod and go through this. But Jarvis, one of the things that I've been really enjoying is that there's more openness and transparency that we're starting to see inside of the financial planning community, and really people just opening up and says, hey, I tried this and it worked, and I tried this and it didn't work. And it's a tough balance out there, especially when we're sharing things online, because eventually all clients will see this information, right? And so how much do you share and what do you put out and how does it look? But really our goal is to help deliver massive value to advisors. And we're going to talk about what that means and how we're going to do that. But I know one of my personal goals is I want to, on the financial planning side of it, I want to help over 1 million federal employees successfully plan their retirement. That's a lot in order to do that. And it's something I can't do alone. It's something I want to learn from other advisors. I want to learn how to grow and I learn how other people are doing it. And we need platforms where people are willing to share. And I just can't sit back idly and hope other people are willing to share. I got to start sharing as well. I got to start opening more things up to help other advisors. And hopefully that's going to reciprocate and help all of us grow. So I'm very excited about this year.
Yeah, it is really fun to see the industry open up. Now, we have a lot of ways to go. We have a long ways to go. But I think back, Micah, that really literally the first time we got together in a mastermind and you had made a comment about a budget item that you had, and the details aren't relevant, or they're not relevant unless we're over beers. And everybody stopped in the group. There was 5 of us advisors. And previously there had been a lot of posturing, like, hey, my practice is this, and I don't have any mistakes in my practice, and everything works perfectly. And then you mentioned this very specific thing, and everybody, the whole room stopped and said,
went quiet.
I can't believe Micah said this. Like, we're not allowed to say these things about our personal money. And then that transformed into what we call financial undressing. And it really shifted a lot of the discussion away from, hey, what's a really exciting headline? What are vanity numbers? Like, how many Facebook followers do I have? Or how many times do I get to go on stage? To, hey, what's really working in your practice? And Micah, when you and I were pre-gaming for this episode, we were talking about, here's some mistakes that happen in our practice. Like, here's things that we're still working on fixing because it's an evolving art. It's an evolving practice.
You know, Jarvis, you mentioned that mastermind, and I can envision it very clearly, right?
Yes.
We were at an Airbnb. We're inside the kitchen. There was a little bit of an island. We're all just kind of standing around, kind of drinking, eating chips and drinking beers, and I was sitting up on the counter, and a comment was made, and then I responded with real money and of what was happening in my personal life. And I was only talking to like 1 or 2 other people, and there's other advisors having a different conversation, and the whole room went silent. And it was just like that. You could feel the tension in the room just kind of start to creep in right there. It says, oh, are we really going there? Like, what's actually happening? This is now kind of taboo, but now it's been pretty epic. And now transforming this, as you said, that has evolved into what we call financial undressing. When we start to do masterminds, is, hey, let's lay our cards out on the table. And we've helped some advisors make some massive improvements inside of their practice, in our own practices as well, because we're having very honest, transparent conversations.
Boy, that's a lot, back to the subject of this episode, a lot of what inspired us to create this podcast, to create the whole Perfect RIA platform, is we said, hey, we need to have these very transparent, very authentic discussions about what's going on in practices. Now, I will confess that at times we take this almost to like a zealot level. We call it getting on the soapbox, because we're so passionate about transparency that when we see people that aren't transparent or that are intentionally hiding their lack of success, they're saying, hey, look at this vanity metric, and never mind that I don't have a practice, or never mind my practice doesn't make any money. Like, we really kind of maybe get over the top on that. But again, we created the Perfect RIA because as you and I started peeling back the layers in our respective practices, we realized, wow, they're eerily similar. And we noticed that they're eerily similar to other rockstar practices. And then every practice that wasn't succeeding was missing these things. So we thought, great, there's got to be a way that we can get the message out that there is this consistent formula of success, and it works every time it's implemented. And every time it's not implemented, practices don't work.
Jarvis, it's a little bit what Jocko talks about. And I forget if it's in dichotomy of leadership or it's extreme ownership or it was on his podcast. Right now, all those are blending together.
Yes.
But somewhere in there, he talks about every aspect of leadership has already been created and it's already been implemented. And every great leader has discovered these things on their own, whether they learned it from somebody else or they figured it out. All great leaders have these same core things that are there. And it's almost the same thing with running a successful business. Right now, we could say a successful RIA practice because that's really our niche and our focus, but most successful practices have these same elements that are in there. So to your point, how do we unpack that formula? And now we can quickly say, what piece of this are we missing? What piece do we need to improve to really add more value to escalate this to the next level?
Well, and part of our mission here, both with the podcast and of course with the coaching program, is to take it from cliches into implementing. And I thought as we kicked off this episode, right, there's always this cliche about working on your business. Well, what does that even mean? What does it even mean to work on your business? And again, it's usually said by people who don't have businesses, so they don't even literally know what it means to work on your business. But Mike, as you and I talked about before the episode started, one of the reasons we do these episodes every week is it forces you and I to really work on our practice, to sit back and say, all right, what's working and what's not working? And have you run into this, or how do you think I should solve this? And so working on your business, I think literally means sitting down with somebody, could be this podcast, better with our coaching program, and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing and here are the results I'm getting. What should I do differently?
And if this is something that you're at a level that says, hey, I have another couple of advisors I want to do something with, et cetera. Great. Take the podcast and all of you listen to it. And then once a week, once a month, you get together and discuss it and say, hey, how does this actually apply in my practice or not? Are Matt and Micah just smoke and crack and we're off in the woods? Or does this actually thing come up? Or what are some other things? Again, Jarvis and I were talking a little bit offline on mistakes that happen in our practice. And we'll share them at some point after they're fixed and we move on with other things, right? But these things happen. And it's good to have a sounding board, a group to go into to make sure you're having these conversations. And Jarvis, I think a lot of our practice has evolved when you and I started sharing more about what we're doing. Even though it was so eerily similar, it really forced us to refine things a little bit more. It says, you know what, we could really clean this up a little bit. As you start opening up your finances, as you start opening up your business, as you start opening these other things and other people seeing your dirty laundry, you have a tendency to say, hey, I want to clean this stuff up. I want to get on a really good path. And that's one of my big missions for this year. Is one of our things is we definitely want to transform the industry. The goal, the mission of the Perfect RIA is to transform the financial planning industry. And we can't do it alone. Guys, we need your help with this. We need to spread this message. We need to grow it. We have some things that we want to talk about with delivering massive value, value adds, how you meet with clients, how you deliver information, all these great things. But the other thing is I want to make sure we have phenomenal transparency with financial advisors. And we're not just transforming the industry for namesake. We're transforming the lives of individual people. That's what we're doing. Heartbeats at the end of the day. And that's what's going to make this so impactful and so amazing.
Yeah, and I think what that looks like, Micah, to the individual advisor, the individual listener, right? It's fun to see things like guardrails and value adds and delivering massive value just permeating the entire industry. But what it means for the individual advisor, the individual listener is whatever measurement you're focused on, we need that number to double, right? So if you're saying, hey, listen, I need my gross to increase. I need my net to increase. I need my quality time to increase. I need my value to my clients to increase. We're not talking about let's make a 5% improvement. Let's make a 10% improvement. We're talking about double, because the lens that it takes to get to double, that takes some real changes in your practice. If you say, hey, I want to get 10% better, just work a little harder. That's really all you have to do. If you want to get to double, you've got to dramatically change what it is you're doing. And again, Mike, and I know this is one of our side tangents, this is a proven path. This isn't, and part of the reason I'm so passionate about this is I spent so much of my early career, Mike, I know you the same, most advisors, chasing what someone said was a proven path. Hey, I've got this great marketing thing or this lead generation, or we've shared some horror stories on this podcast, but chasing shiny objects versus saying, hey, this is a path that works. That's why we launched the videos that Tom Gow recorded for us before he passed away. We said, boy, this is a path that's proven to work. I'm going to follow the path that works and not the path that might work or probably doesn't.
Yeah. And so some of the things to watch out for when we're going through these different paths is, one, your own head trash that's going to come into this. You're going to be in your own way from all of this. There's no education difference between rockstar. Well, actually, there is a slight one between rockstar advisors and average advisors. The average advisor or lower end advisor generally has more accolades, more designation, and more degrees, and they spend more time in education. I'm really pissing some people off right now, but this is about transparency, right? They spend more time worried about education than they have in client communication and delivering value. They spend more time thinking about how do I make things perfect versus saying, you know what, if I get 95% there, I can positively affect the lives of thousands of people, and that's what I'm going to do. If you're waiting for that perfect, if you're waiting for perfection to get everything right before you go out and meet in front of a client, you are never going to get there. You're never going to help someone. You're never going to transform their lives. If you're worried about you're going to make a mistake, guess what? You are. Congratulations. Welcome to the world with the rest of us. We all make mistakes. It's not about making a mistake or not. It's what you do when you make that mistake. How do you help the client through these things? You got to get out there and figure this stuff out. When I started with federal benefits, there was not a great system in place there's a couple of people out there teaching federal benefits to financial advisors, which is great, but there was no system I had found on federal employees, how to deal with OPM when there's problems, how to fix these things. We had to figure it out as we went. And guess what? Sometimes mistakes were made and we had to work through those things. So you have to take action about this. This is all about action. You have to do these things. And for successful advisors, that's one of the things we see time and time again. And Jarvis pushed back, but successful advisors take action. They get an idea and they move forward on it.
Boy, another thing that this reminds me of, Mike, of course, the Perfect RIA expanded beyond just the podcast and just the coaching program.
Right.
We also worked with Stephen Jarvis to start Retirement Tax Services. For a similar reason, like you said, with the federal employees, there's a lot of information out there about taxes. There was not a lot of how do I actually implement this in my practice? What do I do this week? How do I literally get an 8821 set up? How do I literally generate the 1099 letter? In fact, we've got a webinar later this week on Wednesday with Stephen to look at what tax planning are you doing in the next 90 days? I mean, this is a week by week. On the second week of March, what are you doing in your practice to enhance your ability to do tax planning? So another big goal of the Perfect RIA is to give very specific, actionable advice on what do you do this week in your practice.
So that's one of the things that I really encourage us to do, right? It's still January when you're probably listening to this podcast. And so bust out a calendar right now. And if you don't have it, get a sheet of paper. If you have an iPad, open up a blank page, right? Something of that nature. But write it out and say, great, for the next 12 months, what are things that I want to do? If picking 12 things is too hard, which for me on a blank sheet of paper, it's like, great, what are 12 things we're going to focus on? My mind goes blank with that. Fantastic. Start with 2. Right? You have spring and you have fall. Take the summer off. Fantastic. What are 2 things that you want to focus on? If you can do 2, then do 4. Do it on a quarterly basis. If you can do 4, then do 12. Do it on a monthly basis, right? But take action and say, what are things that you want to improve upon this year? Go back to those goals. You should have done business planning in November, December of last year, and really gone through that course and say, where is it? If you haven't, well, then great. Start writing it down now. Let's be hyper intentional. Otherwise, you'll be sitting here at the end of this year or this time next year, listening to the same podcast as we're talking about the amazing things that happened in 2023, and you won't have done a damn thing because it's going to flash by in a blink of an eye. And we got to start with the plan. You got to start with action with something. I can't wait for the perfect plan. While I'd love to have that, I got to start with action and getting something done.
Mike, another piece of the Perfect RIA, both the podcast and the coaching program, and this has gotten us in trouble in fun ways, is you need people in your world who will tell you, hey, listen, you're drinking your own Kool-Aid and you're thinking that your poo-poo don't stink, and it does. And so we end up with this, and there's entire groups in our industry that just stand around and pat each other on the back and say, oh, you're so special and you're such a fiduciary and you're so fee only and you're advice only and you're whatever. And there's all this patting each other on the back. And then when we peel back the layers and we say, how many clients are you actually helping? Suddenly everyone's looking at their shoes. Suddenly it gets really quiet. And so you've got to say, hey, I need
quiet. You ask that question while you're on your iPhone pulling up their ADV while they're stumbling for the number. You're like, let me help you out. It's 12.
Let me help you out.
12. Based on your ADV, you had 12. So did you lie to the SEC? No, you didn't lie. Okay, so you had 12 clients. Yeah, that's the fun part that gets us in trouble.
There's more money in my checking account than you have assets under management. I think you need to quit playing on Facebook and you need to go see clients, right?
Yes.
So while that hurts a lot of feelings, you've got to have somebody in your world that can tell you, hey, listen, what you're doing is not working. Like, I know it sounds fun and there's great vanity metrics about all the retweets you got. It's not working. And so part of the Perfect RIA, while it ruffles feathers, is calling a spade and saying, hey, these are the things that do work. We'll share those. By the way, this does not work. Stop doing that. Stop kidding yourself that you're doing work. You're playing office.
And this is about being hyper intentional. And really, I think this is true compassion. I really do. Allowing someone to believe their own lie. And by the way, this hurts when I'm on the receiving end of this. So I get this because my mastermind group will push back on me with these things. It says, hey, here's what I'm going to do. And here's this thing. And I'll gloss over something and they'll start peeling that back. And I'm like, stop looking over there. Look at these other things. They're like, no, I want to look at that thing. And they'll start pushing me on stuff. And I don't like it. It's very uncomfortable. But you know what? It's needed because I need to grow and I need to review these things. Kind of like confession in some way, right? I got to kind of air these things out and say, you know what, how do I move forward in this state? And I have a good group of guys around me that are going to help with this. And we need that same thing in our industry. We got to start calling a spade. And we can't just gloss over something and say it's okay. It doesn't mean we poo-poo everything just because we don't do it, but fantastic. Show me some evidence with that, right? Now, I am all about starting new things. In fact, we're starting a new way that we're going to onboard prospects this year. And I'm not touting it to the Perfect RIA community because I don't know if it works. I'm going to test it out. Now, I have no problem with changing things up and talking to Jarvis from my mastermind group says, hey, great news. Here's my theory on what I think is going to work. Here's my desired outcome. Here's my ranges and tolerances that's acceptable, etc. If it works, then I'm going to share this with the community. If it doesn't work, I'm still going to share it with the community and let you know how I failed. But I want to come at that with some evidence. And that's how we need to approach things when we're talking to other financial advisors is no BS, no bullcrap. Do you actually do this or not? Is this a theory that I have a question on a theory, or is this reality and I have numbers that back it up?
Another critical piece on this, Mike, and we've alluded to it with masterminds, is creating a community of advisors who espouse all of those things that you just mentioned, where we say, hey, listen, I'm going to high five you like crazy when you hit a victory. When you tell me you brought on another client, when you tell me you had a problem and you fixed it, when you told me you hit your extreme accountability, we're going to high five, we're going to celebrate, we're going to have a cigar, we're going to drink scotch, we're going to have a great time. But as you said, it's also this community they're going to say, wait, that's not working. Quit kidding yourself. Also, though, a community that's very transparent on what works. So when an advisor comes to the Perfect RIA community, they're part of the coaching program, they're part of our mastermind, and they say, hey, I'm stuck here. Odds are that, Mike, either you or I, or at minimum, somebody in our group has been stuck in that same place. Mm-hmm. And there's so much power that comes from, I had that same problem. I also worked endless hours. I also was terrible to be on vacation with. I also spent a lot of time at my desk, but not actually calling prospects. I also waited for the phone to ring constantly. I also was afraid of raising my fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then here's the action I took step by step, and here's the outcome that I got. Follow this same path.
And this is something we need to embrace in our own teams as well. So recently we were talking to our team about saying, hey, for Shalansky and Associates, where do you get stuck? Where do you spin your wheels a lot? Where are we not productive at, right? Because it's so easy for me to sit up here on my little pedestal and say, oh, look, all these things are perfect, and not really look at my practice. And so I got to really dive into that as well, working on your business, whatever that's supposed to mean. So we got together with the team. We said, hey, what's working for you? What's not? We started going through these things. One of the things a team member brought up is that, you know what? It's ridiculous because we got to call Schwab a lot. I said, well, how much do you have to call Schwab? They said, we got to call Schwab 20 times a day. I was like, well, hold on a second. That's a lot of phone calls.
That is a lot.
Sure?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, it's like 20 times a day. We got to call them. We got to go through this. And, she was going off on a little tirade. I said, hey, I want to hold up right there. Are you really sure that's the number? She's like, yeah, I feel very confident in that number. I said, okay, you just said you feel. So let's pull up a real number. What number do you dial?
Sign number one. Yep.
And she pulled up the number she dialed. We logged on to Ring Central, and I looked, and there was like one phone call in the last day. I looked for the last week, and there was less than 20 calls in the last week.
For the whole week.
And it was one of those. The whole week, less than 20 calls in an entire week, right? And it was every day. And then she's like, and I said, all right, this is a phenomenal learning experience. Do I feel that she was intentionally lying to me? No, we have a great team. But we feel sometimes overwhelmed by something and we don't have numbers to back it up. In our mind, this becomes such a gargantuan thing. Well, she has to call them and she's put on hold and like all this other stuff. So it feels like it's so much. And anytime she needs to make that phone call. Okay, well, great news. Reality is it's only one time a day. So now let's time block that. How do we make this an effective process? How do we go through these other things and make this more manageable? Why do I bring this story up? Because we do the same things as advisors, right? We blow these things up completely out of proportion, whether it's I have so many clients or I'm bringing on so many prospects or I'm doing all of these other things or the fees that I charge, etc. Great. Show me the numbers that back it up. This is true compassion, right? Not letting other people lie to themselves is compassion and saying, hey, is this really right? Is this really the right number? Let's make sure we're on the same page. We all want to grow together, right? I'm not trying to pull you down in the mud. I'm trying to make sure you get to where you want to go. And if you have a bad foundation and a bad footing and you start to grow, you're going to have a problem.
Boy, Micah, that's such a critical thing, and it's a major tenet of the Perfect RIA that we want to see real numbers. And
Yes.
I can think back, as you were telling that story, I can think back of so many cases where I wish somebody would have said, hey, Jarvis, those numbers you just told me, they didn't add
So
up.
BS.
You told
So
me
BS.
you're meeting with 10 prospects a week. Great, write down their names. You told me that you're meeting with clients constantly. Cool, let's pull up your calendar and look at how many clients you met with. You told me you don't have time to do prospecting. Cool, let's pull up your calendar and see what you're doing. Mike, I love the exercise you take us through all the time, which is let's take the number of clients you have, multiply it by the number of hours each client needs, and it usually comes out to a half or a third of the available hours in the year. You guys can find the episode on that. It'll be linked in the show notes.
Right.
But we just all lie to ourselves. I don't know why it is, but you've got to have somebody in your world that you trust and that you respect, and they can take you through those numbers and say, wait a second, that doesn't add up. You're kidding yourself here. Let's make some changes.
You know, when I'm preparing for a mastermind, Jarvis, or a personal mastermind, when I'm doing the financial addressing, I have the team put together a lot of these numbers for me, right, to pull them together. And they'll give me these numbers and they'll put them on a spreadsheet. And I'll pull them aside and it's like, great. When one of these guys pulls me aside and says, Mike, I think this number is BS. Show me the supporting documents. Where do I go and how accurate is that number? And they kind of look on their face. They're like, I'm like, yeah, I want backup information on all of this, right? I really want to push back on the team. But then as I lead like that, the team also gets permission to push back on me when I say, hey, great news. I heard about this idea with Jarvis. And if you implement this, your practice automatically doubles. And we have more time off and everything's easier. And all we got to do is send out this letter. And it's easy. And it's just a mail merge letter. It takes like 5 minutes. I talked to Jarvis, it takes 5 minutes to send out. And they're like, 5 minutes? Really? You want to do a new value add and it takes 5 minutes to send out. That's what you think is going to, and you want to do it now, by the way, because we have all this other stuff going on, right? But it allows them to push back on it a little bit and says, well, does this really take 5 minutes? What's really involved in this letter? What additional information do we need? All of these things as well, because we all get excited about the hype, which I totally get. We just need to be more grounded in saying, what is the next actionable step I can take?
Mike, a final piece, I think, or not a final, another piece of the Perfect RIA, as we mentioned, creating these opportunities to get together. We talked about our personal mastermind. Of course, we do the Invictus masterminds. Our next one's coming up in May, and we have another one in September. This is really, and I mentioned this, of course, one, to plug the Perfect RIA, because that's what we're here to do. But the other is wherever you're going to be this year as an advisor, wherever you're doing your personal development, you really need to look ahead of time and say, hey, am I going to get this kind of financial addressing? Am I going to get this kind of extreme accountability? Am I going to get really working on my business? Or is this a stand around and pat each other on the back? Now, you can have both, I suppose. Like there's groups that I've been to that I really go out of my way to make sure I have what I need out of that group. But otherwise, you need to find a format. You need to find a group of people. We've created these. We've created multiple of them. Like I said, we're getting together in May and again in September. But you've got to have this group of people who will call a spade and say, hey, listen, here's what you need to work on. And let me hold you accountable to make sure it gets done.
That's fantastic. Well, Jarvis, as we always talk about these things, this podcast is all about action items. One of the things, just to kind of recap real fast, the goal of the Perfect RIA is to transform the financial planning industry.
Yes.
And that is no small feat. There's other great people that are helping out that are doing this as well. We really want to open this thing up and show that there's proven methods to success. There's not one method to success. There's multiple ways that you can be successful, but every successful practice, again, Jarvis, something you said, every successful practice has certain elements in it, and you got to make sure you have those elements. Just like a math formula, right? It's pretty simple, just algebra. What am I missing from this equation? And I can add that back in there, and you're going to be able to solve for success. And that's the goal of the Perfect RIA, is by transforming the industry. We're going to show that success formula. We're going to talk about more things that are going to be there. But again, we can't do this without your help. We want to share this message. We want to get out there. We want to share this out to other advisors. So you know what to do. Jump on that iPhone. Give us 5 stars. If you don't have an iPhone, go to an Apple store. They have them there. And give us 5 stars on the podcast. Share this out with other advisors.
Mike, another action item, one of the things that really fires us up, that really gets us excited about helping advisors, is to see literally this transformation happening practice by practice. So a second action item, after you've given it 5 stars again, is to write down for us what your double is. Now, I like to have it on a Post-it note. I always keep Post-it notes on my monitor that have my next round of goals. I've given a lot of presentations on this. Just last week, I did a big presentation for 170 advisors at Prudential Financial on the East Coast, and we went through this exercise, and we said, hey, what does double look like for you? So whatever double looks like for you, dear listener, email that to lifestyle@theperfectria. Let us know what it is you're aiming for. Now, again, if you're saying, hey, I want to go from 1,000 Facebook friends to 2,000 Facebook friends, I have no interest in that. If you're saying, hey, I want to help twice as many clients, I want to double my revenue, double my profitability, my time with my family, send that in. We want to help you with that. Let us know what the gaps are, because we'll add that into our programming for future episodes.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. You know what? And then sign up for the TPR live event. We had a live
Yes.
event coming up in September, which is going to be fantastic. Retirement Tax Services is also doing a live event. And really, it's going to be a financial planning conference to help transform the industry. That's what we're going for with this. So make sure you join us in September. I know the last ones we've done have just been absolutely amazing and a ton of blast. And Jarvis, until next time, happy planning.
Happy planning.
Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice.